Welcome back to the big issue, looking at ahead of Tuesday's official rollout of Ghana's coronavirus vaccination program. Everybody's excited. The vaccines came in this week, and I have a member of the vaccination task force here, of the Ghana's coronavirus task force, Ambassador Dr. Bernard Okoboy, and I've been trying to put out some information and get some clarity. I hope that is going down well with you. 0549986996. 0549986996 and 0550585832. So, Dr. Okoboy, let me just get through some of the questions from the general public, and then we will move on to the second part of our show, which is to review this week's vetting. So, good morning, and thank you, Dr. Okoboy, for coming. Now to the questions. This is Thomas Citizen from Amasama. It says, how did the vaccine get examined by the FDA? Did they test every consignment, or they chose randomly and tested? And finally, is there any scientific research that shows that although a vaccine can be poisonous, it cannot be detected immediately? These are his concerns. Hi, CTFM. Kindly ask the doctor whether there are any side effects of the vaccine, and why are they classifying Ghana as one of the poor countries receiving the vaccines? Kweku Accra from Accra. Well, Kweku, I think that's really a trivial issue. I've seen a lot of Ghanaians focus on a Sky News report that said, look, several poor countries that are receiving this. It's a state of mind. You can decide to accept we are poor. You can decide to accept whether we are not poor. But let's not dwell on that. Let's focus on the bigger issues. One says, good morning. So how long does one have to stop using the nose mask after taking the injection? This is Ata Agwe. Well, Ata, this one I can even answer for you without Dr. Okoboy. Even when you take the vaccine, keep your mask on. True or false?
That's true.
Yes. Awudia Bernard from Medina Godfrey. I'm getting the understanding that Ghana took this vaccine as aid. Ghana did not take this vaccine as aid. Awudia Bernard. We have tried to explain what the COVAX is. And as he explained in his initial comments, there are over 92 countries that are involved in the COVAX facility. It's simply an avenue to make sure that there is equitable distribution of vaccines, so that certain countries do not get to decide that, okay, we can keep the vaccines and not give another country. That is all this is. I hope you understand. So it is not aid in the correct sense of you are getting something. No, this is something that is global. Unless you are saying the whole world is getting aid, then that's fine. Good morning. Please can an already infected person take the vaccine? Asking because some may be infected but may not know. Thank you. This is coming from Joe Martin. I think he addressed that question in his earlier submission. So, Dr. Okoboy, I think maybe you can look at convincing the audience on the test the FDA carried out. People are asking what exactly did the FDA test, since they have no prior skill set on vaccines dealing with COVID.
But honestly, I mean, sometimes we might fall in the trap of not appreciating what we have. There's a platform in Africa that is made up of vaccine experts, people who are knowledgeable in vaccine development and quality assurance and safety and efficacy and all that. And we have about 3 or 4 of them in Ghana here, who are even part of the Africa platform. I know that our FDA boss, Madam Mrs. Mimidako, she's the chairperson for one of the platforms that regulates vaccines in Africa. So we have the expertise here. Now, let me just read a summary of what we refer to as the product development dossier. That's the document on the AstraZeneca, which tells you of what is the components, how it was developed, the safety, the trials, and all that.
I hope it's not too long. We don't have too much time.
No. It's just one line, okay, just so that people will know that the overall safety of COVID-19 vaccine AstraZeneca is based on an analysis of pooled data from 4 clinical trials conducted in the United Kingdom, Brazil, and South Africa. At the time of analysis, over 23,745 participants had been given the vaccine. The most frequently reported adverse reactions were injection site tenderness. Tenderness means pain, which is 63.7%. Then you have injection site pain, 54.2%. Headache, about 52%. Fatigue, myalgia, which is muscle pain. Malaise, that's feeling unwell. And then fever, that's in about 7.9%. And arthralgia, which is joint pain. So, I mean, what some are called side effects, I would prefer to use adverse effects. Okay. Because adverse effects means that they are effects you didn't want, but they came as part of the exercise. So that is that. So it's a safe. It's safe. FDA does both product development dossier examination, which means the documents. Look, in the US, these vaccines came from India. They are transporting some to Canada. Canada wouldn't go open each of them, put it in their machines, and say that we've confirmed. What they do is what we also do here. You take the documents, the dossier, the documents, go through to be, to appreciate what you've received. And then you take samples randomly to test in your facility. And we have the lab, of course, to test and see that these components are really in there.
All right. And this one is from another one who says, I am in Takwa, I'm asthmatic. Do I qualify to take this vaccine?
If you're asthmatic, it's a comorbidity. So you qualify. But like I said, in terms of the specific details, you don't just walk and say I'm asthmatic. We'll find ways to make sure that we capture all these ones. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And somebody's asking, has the government set up a vaccine injury compensation program?
Yeah, so with the Takwa person, just before I forget, so if he attends, we have asthma clinics in some hospitals. If he's on the list of the Takwa government hospital as an asthma patient, should we go for a list from there? He'll be on it. Exactly. Okay. That's what will happen.
And then on the matter of compensation.
Yeah. So you know, I want to be careful here. You see, we do a lot of vaccinations for all age groups over the years. Anytime you give a vaccine and there's an issue, you investigate it. I would not like to speak to compensation or not, but what I know is that when we investigate, it is managed in a way that brings satisfaction to both partners, both the state and the person. Yeah. All right. Because you don't want to start speaking to money and compensation and all that. It's a national rollout program.
All right then.
And then with the COVAX platform, let me do small education here. You know, WHO has partnered this platform. It's a platform of low to medium, middle income countries. So not all are poor countries. The reason why they were put together is that when you put together, you are able to bargain well. So it's supposed to ensure two things: to have good prices, and secondly, to reduce the risk of getting something inferior. Because when you are put together, then your strength is bigger. So that misconception must go down.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bernard Okoboy. So Tuesday, we look forward. So once the president takes it, then we begin.
We are all, yes.
So we are good to go.
The president, the vice, in fact, key people on site like Godfrey.
No, I am not getting vaccinated. But if you are offering, I am definitely showing up. Are you offering? I am definitely showing up.
It's good to hear that you want to take it.
Oh, of course I do want to take the vaccine. I'll be first in line. I'll even beat the president if you give me the chance. But thank you very much for that, Dr. Bernard Okoboy, for providing us that quick education. Although we had to go off script a bit. If you have any other questions, yes, just keep sending them. I will try and find time to squeeze it in because it's a very, very important national activity. Starts on Tuesday, the national rollout of Ghana's COVID vaccination program. 600,000 doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID vaccine is here. They're looking forward to purchasing others as well. 2 doses this time. They're looking to do other things. So we'll keep an eye on it and we'll keep them on their toes. Okay, now back to the vetting this week, and I'll begin that conversation with Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Africa. Franklin, good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Okoboy. Hope you are well.
Franklin Kujo, good morning.
Morning, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you will take the COVID vaccine.
Well, if I'm offered, I definitely will. I'm not one of those vaccine, should I call it, people who are against vaccines. But of course, we respect their views as well. So,
yeah, certainly. Okay, let's get straight into it. And this week we saw over 10 minister designates, some of them handling very significant state portfolios, some of which you are heavily vested in as Imani Africa. In fact, I can say for basically all of them. But I want to begin the conversation from Lands and Natural Resources designate Samuel Abu-Jinapo. I was heartily impressed by how prepared he was and the plan that he seems to have for a very important ministry, one that has been beset by controversy in the past 3 years based on the so-called war on Galamsey.
Well, you are right. I think the pattern this week has been quite interesting. We've heard a number of very bold statements, if you like, visions proffered by some of the ministers, some of the nominees. And you are right. I think Abu discharged his duty quite well, intelligently as well. I noticed that some of the very controversial issues that came up, he seemed to be gung-ho about them, essentially saying that he's going to make sure, obviously with the support of the various agencies that are supposed to help, will bring the matter to some fruition. I think that the issues around optimizing our land values or optimizing our landed resources must also be had. I didn't hear that much. Of course, I think some of the members did ask questions about some lands that were either within the domain of the public, but now have been encroached upon. The fact of the matter is that the Lands Commission has embarked on some good projects where the whole idea of digitizing or digitalization, if you like, of landed properties are supposed to be done in record time. As we speak, only 10% of Accra lands have been digitized. That is just 10% of Accra lands, not the entire country. So you know how much work that needs to be done. And I said 10%, these are expert reviews, by the way. I mean, the Lands Commission actually accepted that only 10% of lands in Accra have been digitized, which means the remaining 90% of Accra plus the over 100% of the entire country is not digitized. No serious country can make headway in terms of building its prosperity in that regard. Much as the nominee seemed to be, or he did say that he's going to ensure that some of these things are done, I think that should be the number one priority, because digitalization somehow puts to rest some of the issues around the disputes that we have. And disputes, indeed, land disputes, I'm told, take up almost 60% of the cases in our courts. And so it tells you that we are leaving a large part of our wealth buried. If you've read the book of Hernando de Soto, the Peruvian economist, who wrote, I think the title of the book is Why Capitalism Triumphs in the West and Fails Everywhere Else. He did say that, look, developing countries like Ghana are sitting on dead assets, on dead wealth. And that until you breathe life into this wealthy resources, there's no way you're going to build any prosperity. I like to build on that and say that one of the most important things to be done by the ministry, in fact, you should focus more on that than, apart from digitization and anything else, is to ensure that there's proper valuation of most of our assets, landed assets. Because when that is done, that's the only way you can begin to have a conversation about, taxing property valuation and all of that. Often you hear, properties are all over dotted all over the places, but are not paying property rates and what have you. But of course, nobody has gone to do the valuation. Nobody has asked the money. We can gain significant amount of resources, at least for development, from properly valued landed resources. And in this case, I mean, both private and public. So I would think that in spite of course, there's an issue about Galamsey and all of that. I mean, Galamsey is an extension of the avarice within political office. I mean, I think I'm not too sure people are really interested in stemming the tide of this whole, should I call it, Galamsey stuff. Because as he rightly said, I think party people, he did say, have been contributory factors to the loss, the fight that was lost. It's strange though, he says the fight is not lost. And that he at the same time says that party people have contributed to the loss of the fight. The fact of the matter is that it is the dereliction of duty that has led to this. And there's also the issue about, properly regulating the mining industry. What's the point in going 14 steps, 15 steps before getting a mining license. And by the time I come, I need money to be able to start mining. Mining? By the time I return to my land, somebody else may be farming gold on my land. So it's a potpourri of a number of things he's going to deal with. It's a big ministry. If he puts his head on the ground and speaks to the experts in the field, such as the Lands Commission and all those agencies, he will make a headway. I was pleased.
What did you make of his response to the Etiwa bauxite mining issue? There are those who have said that it's something that should not go forward, but he seemed to reiterate the government's position that it is dedicated to some form of protective mining, and that they are going to ensure that the activities do not affect the biodiversity that exists in the Tiwa forest. It was not an answer a lot of people were happy with.
Well, even beyond the controversy around the environmentalism or the economy, the ecological conversations, I think if we did a hard analysis of the economics of bauxite mining within the Tiwa enclave, I think we are better off not even mining at all. And I'll be happy to share some real data and analysis with the nominee minister. We realize that the whole big talk about bauxite is frankly not worth it. If you look at the economics of it, I mean, it's going to cost you a lot more to actually get the bauxite out of the ground. And as I said, we've cracked the numbers. We were going to share that with the vice president at some point, but then of course, a lot of things have been, we traveled and all of that. But we've done the hard numbers, we've done a lot of conversations. So before even you get to the issues around, maybe that will also feed into the conversation that is it wise to go and destroy natural habitat, the conservatory, and then find out that it was better you didn't even start at all. I think the economics of that bauxite mining is the integrated aluminium industry, as it's called. Many people seem to be taking on this whole idea of resource, should I call it, optimization and barter trading and what have you. Sure, you know that the Sino hydro deal, the Chinese are not interested. You know the Chinese, they are not interested in the bauxite we give them, whether we give them or not. They are not interested in paying back the money. You create an escrow account and put 8% of the money of value they give you. So these whole discussions about bauxite, trading bauxite for deals, and then at the end of the day, going to destroy a natural habitat, I'm not for it. By the way, I said this with the very cautious optimism that, look, I believe in balancing the ecology and economy.
Yeah.
But in the case of Etiwa, the economists do not justify destroying the ecology at all. I'm not too sure.
And Ejapa?
Well, Ejapa, obviously, I think a lot has happened. I'm surprised that any of the ministers are even continuously holding on to it. I think a lot has happened, and now even the proposers or the proponents of Ejapa are beginning to distance themselves or trying to change the entire model. So I think anybody holding on to the old Ejapa model, maybe is only happy because, like we at Imani are also happy about capitalist maximization of assets. It's just the method that was deployed that was wrong. I suspect he is going to be part of those conversations, and I'm sure he'll be well served with the lessons of Ejapa. And again, I'm not sure the name is even going to be Ejapa again. There's going to be a lot that will change here.
All right. We'll keep an eye on that. Housing also came up, and we had one of the new ministers, a former deputy chief of staff, Francis Boache. He's works and housing minister nominee. He also appeared and spoke about a couple of projects. And it's of interest to us. So we have Engineer Kojo Baini, a member of the Affordable Housing Committee from Greda, also as part of this conversation. Good morning, Engineer Baini.
Good morning, and thanks for having me on the program.
It's a pleasure.
Just to correct you, I'm not an engineer. I am a real estate developer.
Sorry, apologies for that.
No problem.
So I can call you Kojo Baini.
That is better, thank you.
A pleasure. So, first of all, your overall thoughts on the focal points put out by the man who is going to run the sector that you are heavily invested in, particularly his reference to affordable housing and, surprisingly, his commitment to completing a project like Saglemi.
Okay. First of all, I think we should, as a grouping, we should thank the previous minister for creating the environment, okay, for housing developments to take off. He did a lot of work on legislation, although he was not able to build. A lot of work has been done in terms of the REITs and so on. So the environment has been created, and I believe that the current minister has an opportunity to deliver some housing units through the professionals to get something done. Saglemi, he mentioned raising funds for, but we believe that, we believe that really there are a lot more legal issues to be looked at Saglemi rather than financial issues. The issue was of planning. Although some of the units were delivered, it was only a drop in the ocean. It was clear that the target market was not properly defined, and the place was being set up to be a white elephant. But I believe that with his focus on it, he has the capacity to deliver the project. And there'll be a lot of work. I mean, we know that suggestions have come out that Ministry of Defense, for instance, be handed over to them to house soldiers. So, you know, the more units we have available, the better it will be for the economy.
Well, your association, Greta, is into construction, and there are those who say, look, we have a significant housing deficit. At the moment, the numbers show we need to be producing, 200,000 plus a year. We are doing something in the region of 40 to 50,000, if my numbers are accurate. Why are we not focusing on building these smaller houses? But you see a significant interest from real estate developers like yourself in putting up these townhouse type estates.
Okay. There are major issues there. There is what we call demand and what we call effective demand. Now, if the environment, for instance, if the environment is not set up properly to have mortgages to help people who aspire to buy a home to buy, you can build as many low-cost housing out there, but they will not be able to have the money to buy. And so the environment has also got to be worked on. And I believe instruments like the REITs that the Ministry of Finance assisted in putting up could be used well in bringing these things out.
He also, I heard this week somebody make mention of propose a swap kind of deal. I'm not sure if you read about it, where there would be a focus on, instead of mortgages, perhaps people being able to put up their pensions and things like that. Would that be a viable avenue to solving this affordable housing situation?
It will be a great help. And the previous minister actually did work on that. To allow people's pension funds, a proportion of their pension funds to be put towards getting a home. So yes, it is helpful. You know, as many instruments as possible that can come in to help people buy would be very, very helpful to the regime.
And also this suggestion of a national housing authority. We have a state housing company or corporation. What would be different? Why do we need an authority? Is it something that would work?
State Housing Corporation is actually mandated to actually build and provide homes. And that's so they are in there with the players. But what the authority will be doing will be someone on top of all that, okay, who is making sure that state housing, for instance, are building according to regulations, and all the developers or individuals who build their homes, okay, build according to the regulations. And it will go a long way, because you've seen what cowboy developers or constructors can do. And it can be very difficult environment if we don't use the professionals that we have available. The engineers are sitting there waiting to work. But my grandmother, for instance, to start a building and get a mason. And the mason will get a draftsman who will draw something, and before you know, the building is up. And that's a recipe for disaster. So we need an authority who have the power to enforce these regulations that are in place. And that is currently missing.
Oh, okay. And finally, on this particular matter, those who found significant interest in the proposal to extend the collection of rent from 3 months to 1 year, considering how people have even complained about scraping up funding for payment of 2 years, and they had been pushing that at least 3 months to 6 months would have made sense. But there's a minister who comes in and says 1 year is something that makes more sense and will benefit both renters and landlords. What is your take on that?
It's a volatile situation. Now, affordable houses for rent, we do not have enough of them to allow the forces of demand and supply, to run loose. The demand exceeds supply, and so a lot of people will be disappointed. At the moment, the regime, people are still able to house themselves. Unfortunately, certain people slip through. But as more units of housing are brought into play, you will find out that the market effects will take place, so that if someone is asking for a year's rent in advance, and 90% of the people out there can only afford to pay quarterly, that person's property will probably be empty. And so demand and supply in due course will kick in, and these things are going to iron themselves out. Allowing people to do 1 year, I wouldn't say too much to it, because it's already being done. It's going as far as 2 years. So if he says he's going to bring that down from 2 years to 1 year, or from 6 months to 1 year, really, that is not at the core of the issue. The core of the issue is the supply of the housing unit.
All right, then. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Kojoba, any member of Affordable Housing Committee. Greater. Dr. Kobo, I'm sure you also paid attention. Are you a landlord?
I'm not.
You're not a landlord?
I'm not a landlord. In fact,
Okay.
my grandmother was, my mother was, and I'm hoping that I become one in the future.
So, your thoughts on the housing situation?
I think we've been so much used to the orthodox, which is the brick and mortar, but there are other conventional ways of, coming out with houses, and I think we have to explore those ones, especially when the technology changes. It can affect pricing. It's about pricing, and I think one issue that also makes housing a very difficult enterprise to go in, or to blossom or expand, is the issue of land. Very key. The things you go through to secure land, even those who have secure land, the issues and they have to deal with, to battle with landguardism and all. So these are matters that ultimately have a price or an impact on the price, and we have to deal with them. Until you deal with them, it will always be there's a big gap between demand and supply, and they going for townhouses and all that. So basically, as for the 3 months rent stuff, that is not the gravamen of the issue. You can bring it to 2 months if you don't address issues with land. and you don't also address the technology, I mean, you have a difficult task trying to make housing accessible to all. Look, there are technologies that can let you put up a house at 1/3 the average price we use here. But for some reason, this is a country where people are so conservative. They trust what has been done for the past 100 years. It doesn't mean it's the best or is the only thing you can have. And people must also come to the point where they realize that a house must not last for 100 years. You understand? I mean, there are technologies that will let you have a house up, and you know that this house in 15 or 20 years must be redone or renovated, or some structures must be redone. So you go in targeted housing. We give you this because most of this concrete, brick, and mortar is because we want our great-grandchildren to also come and stay in. But it doesn't make sense, So I think we have to rethink the whole process, and then with time we'll do better.
All right. Ahasa Saibu Suini, Member of Parliament for Tamale North. Good morning.
Good morning, Prophet.
Wow, I like your new set.
Forgive me, I just arrived at a function but I thought I should engage you before I even step out of the car.
But Godfrey, if you have a country where the opposition member has such a view or a setting for his Zoom, it tells you that the country is doing well.
You think you can intimidate me with your muscles?
But so really interesting week, a bit different from the drama of last week. You dealt with a couple of significant portfolios this weekend. People have zoomed in on the Lands and Natural Resources Minister's vetting based on his comments on Galamsey. I want you to put his vetting and then that of the Sanitation Minister, who said Accra is on course to being the cleanest city, which was a key promise that was made 4 years ago.
Well, thank you very much. Let me say good morning to you, good morning to our viewers, and to my very good friend, Dr. Kopoy, and other guests, Franklin and others. I think that, yes, this week was quite exciting. Even when nominees didn't answer questions, if they evaded the questions, they still demonstrated some ability with which you can give them the benefit of the doubt as far as possible delivery is concerned when they go to those ministries that they have been nominated for. And yes, we spoke of the Land and Forestry Minister nominee, Samuel Abu-Jinapor. I think that he was bold, he was confident in terms of the vision and the aspirations that he has as far as work at the ministry is concerned. But I was a little disappointed that it was difficult for him to concede that the fight against Galamsey actually, in the end, has been a failure. I like the way you also put it in your intro, a so-called war against Galamsey. Clearly did not give us the results that we're all expecting. And I have particularly been paid, especially for the media, given the amount of airtime that you devoted to this fight, believing that people in power, people who had the authority, were as committed as you were. I find it very disappointing that he was not magnanimous in answering the question of how that fight has been a failure. I think that the president, in his last State of the Nation address, was more humble than the minister suggested when the president, after 4 years of the fight, decided to now call for some, discussion around how we want to deal with this. Because clearly, for me, that was an admission that the way he was going about it did not give us the results that we're expecting. But all in all, I think he came across as somebody that you can give the benefit of the doubt. And if you observe, people who have not served in ministries before sometimes tend to have the verve. They tend to be more confident about what they can achieve when they are given the nod. And I think that is also good. It is sometimes good to try and experiment with people who do not know about existing, barriers. And through their boldness and their daring nature, perhaps motivated by exuberance or even ignorance, they may just break a ceiling that will lead to some fortunes for all of us as a country. You also spoke about Asensio Ochre. I think that he was also very calm. I like his approach and his focus, especially on Sagleme. The fact that there may be issues that we do not understand around Sagleme should not lead to a situation where the taxpayer suffers and loses everything. Because the taxpayer, for all you know, and I'm sure you agree with me, did not in any way contribute to whatever may be the reason for which you are confused about the arrangement that was put in place to deliver these houses. So whatever the situation may be around it, I like his determination and focus that he will want to get it finished and get it utilized. As for the issues that are around it, if anybody have those issues, they never will expire. They can always be looked at. But the focus, first of all, must be to make sure that it does not become the white elephant that people suggest that it's becoming. Because when that happens, it is the state that loses. And so it is always better to get something out of a very bad situation if you think the situation in relation to Sagaleme is bad. I don't think that there's any issue that is bad as far as Sagaleme is concerned. But if even you think so, the focus was right. Get it completed, get it available to be utilized, because we have a huge housing deficit in this country. And so if that will be delivered and contribute to relieving the situation that we are in, I think it was a very good approach that must be encouraged. And on sanitation, you are right. I think that the minister also was not forthright about the failure of that fight. The promise to make Accra the cleanest city simply hasn't been delivered. She sought to say that it was work in progress. She, before the end of the first term, even tried to review the pledge. And when it was pointed out to her that indeed I think that all in all, those who appeared this week were quite exciting. The sports minister, for example, the sports minister nominee.
Yes. He looked quite prepared.
Yes. He was also quite interesting. He looked prepared. He seemed to have taken the briefing on the ministry seriously. And I however, like I indicated, was disappointed that the president did not renominate, the former sports minister, because there are so many issues. Yes, there are so many issues around the ministry that I would have relished an opportunity to pick his mind or to come face to face with him on some of the issues that the ministry through his work, came face to face with. It would have been interesting to get his explanations on the visa scandals that have rocked the ministry, for example, since he's been minister. It would have also been nice to engage him on some of the happenings around the National Sports Authority, organizing, parallel games, and also abuse of power and misuse of resources. But it was unfair for one to expect the new nominee to, be confronted with those issues and to have very logical explanations for them. But we just hope that those things will guide the new nominee, if he is approved, to go to the ministry in his dealings, so that he does not also, face the challenges that the previous minister faced. I think his attitude gives me hope. When he talked about the people that he will be consulting, it gives me hope that perhaps he can do well if he gets the support of everybody.
you also had the railways minister who was previously energy minister, and there was quite a hectic session for Mr. John Peter Mewu. But did you leave with the conviction that he has what it takes to move forward what obviously is a very important and crucial arm of our transport sector, but has struggled for a lack of funding, even though there has been significant commitment from the government to moving rails beyond what it is now?
Yes, Mr. Mewu, I think he has drive. I don't know whether that drive gives the desired results. But if you with the Lands and Forestry Ministry, if you watch his performance when he was with the Lands and Forestry Ministry, he had some drive. Again, when he was with the Energy Ministry, he didn't lack energy. But like I said, the results of that energy is or can be disputable. I mean, you may be impressed with the results or not. So I expect him to go to the Railways Ministry also, if he is approved, with the same drive. There were some issues that were quite funny, especially during his tenure as Energy Minister. Some he handled quite well. Others, I'm sure the jury is out there. He could have done better, in my view, on those issues. But on some other contentious issues that, could have created tension during his vetting, I think he came very contrite. He was very, very ready to concede to some statements that he made that were not palatable, and readily provided profuse apologies for them. So it's disarmed people who, on our side, for example, wanted to, raise issues with those things. So I think that when the committee meets as a group and a decision is made on him, I believe that if he gets the nod, with the same energy that he worked with at Lands and at Energy, he may be able to contribute something to the railway sector. But if those issues that were not well addressed become reasons why he's not approved, then I'm sure that people who disagree may want to look at the videos again and see if the reasons for rejecting him are meritorious or not. And that is not to say that he's going to be rejected. I'm just trying not to give so much away because I'm a member of the committee, and we are still assessing some of the answers that were provided by nominees, and based on those answers, whether they were satisfactory or not, a decision will be communicated, I'm sure, early next week.
Did you leave with clarity on the function of Madam Frida Prempeh and Asenso Boakye? Hello, Sweeney, did you hear me?
Yes, I heard about Frida Prempeh, but
yeah, I was asking whether you were left convinced about the clarity in roles of Madam Frida Prempeh and Asenso Boakye.
No, not at all. Not at all. And that is why the leader on our side had to make it clear before even the vetting started that we do not think that the practice of nominating ministers of state to work in ministries should be encouraged. We think that it is a potential for conflict at those ministries. We think this president and future presidents must desist from that act. We think that the better practice, which has served us over time, where ministers of state are at the presidency and assigned roles at either ministries or agencies, is a better way to go. Because clearly, Minister of State at the ministry leaves room for conflict. And we think that if their human nature, for example, are not compatible with each other, it's going to be very difficult for them to work together. The reporting lines are not clear. And we have spoken to some civil servants who have also complained about the reporting lines and how it gets difficult for them to, report to ministers of state at the ministry and ministers responsible for the ministry. You don't really know who your boss is. And so we think that it must be discouraged. And we just hope that the two of them will be compatible in nature and will find, an amicable way of making do with the very bad situation that they found.
And before I move away from you, there was this
themselves.
Hello, Suhini, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Godfrey.
Yes, so there was also this kerfuffle about the public enterprise minister and his function, which led to a significant debate between your leader and the deputy majority leader. What did you make of that?
Sorry, which one?
The public enterprise minister.
Yes. I think that that was also something quite significant. Sometimes people at the presidency must take their time and do their work very well, because when they fail, they embarrass the presidency and they give the notion that they are not well briefed or on top of their jobs, because clearly the communication that came to Parliament was different from the intention of the appointing authority as reported in the media, because we all got the impression listening to the media that this was going to be a minister of state at the presidency, and so he was not going to a ministry. But then the communication that came to Parliament put him together with other ministers that were going to ministries. And so for us, we thought it was not appropriate for that communication to come to Parliament, because the president, through his release and through the constitutional instrument, had created a number of ministries, and the ministry for public enterprise development, whatever it is, was not part of the ministries that had been created by the CI that the president signed. And so yet the communication to us suggested that there was a ministry like that. So by law, we didn't think that it was appropriate for us to continue. But subsequently, the leader of government business in Parliament gave assurances that it was a mistake that will be rectified and that a letter will come to correct that mistake. And it was based on that admission of a mistake that we decided to vet the nominee and perhaps conditionally and wait for that correction. Because as we speak, there's no ministry for public enterprise development per the CI that the president, issued to create ministries that he intends to work with in the second term, subject to the court's ruling.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Member of Parliament for Tamale North, Al Hassan Saibu Suhini, on his way to a function, but he's taking some time off to speak to us. Thank you very much for your time. This is The Big Issue. We'll take a quick break. When we return, we still have to deal with the Supreme Court and then matters of LGBTQI.
Lawful wedded wife to having to hold from this day forward.
I do.
How much drama can you enjoy? See it feely with HD Plus. Get the best companion for your HD TV with HD Plus. Dial *879# to activate and enjoy the first 2 months for free.
Smiles are one of the most important things we have. Globally, 1 in 2 children suffer from cavities. Pepsodent with maximum cavity protection repairs tiny holes before they become cavities. Because every smile matters.
Welcome back to The Big Issue. I'll be taking your messages in a bit. You can also join us via our line 0549 986 996, 0549 986 996, and then 0550 585832, 0550 585832. You can send your comments and thoughts on the vetting that you saw this week. But we are moving on to the Supreme Court, which is wrapping up its hearing of the election petition that was filed by former President John Dramani Mahama. Now, he had filed another review application on Monday that was dismissed, and it looks like we are set for a ruling on March 4. Both parties have filed their final addresses. In fact, it's been made public, some 40 plus pages. Lawyers, as you know, when you give them the chance, they will type and type away. And according to the Supreme Court, in a unanimous ruling in dismissing the review application that was filed on Monday, Mr. Mahama had not made a case compelling enough to warrant the granting of his application. So we can hear a ruling, an excerpt on the ruling, and then when we come back, we'll hear from private legal practitioner Martin Pebu and also another private legal practitioner, Nikpakpo Samoa Ado.
It was a long day in court on Monday, February 22, as the bench had to deal with 3 issues before it. Mr. Chachu Chikata's application on behalf of former President Mahama for a review of the court's earlier dismissal of Mr. Mahama's application to reopen his case, a motion for an extension of time to enable him file his closing address, and the issue of contempt against a former Deputy Attorney General, Dr. Dominic Ayine. Mr. Chikata opened his application for review, urging the court to consider what he said were errors in law in its February ruling, denying Mr. Mahama the opportunity to reopen his case.
This ruling was per incuriam section 72 of the Evidence Act 1975 and has occasioned a grave miscarriage of justice. There is no question that in your Lordship's ruling, there is no reference whatsoever to Section 72 of the Evidence Act. Instead, there is a reference to Black's Law Dictionary, which is an English law text. No reference is made to Section 72 of the Evidence Act. Section 72 of the Evidence Act is a statute of Ghana. No reference is made to that. And instead, there is a reference made to an English law textbook, which is not what is binding on your lordships. That is why we say respectfully that that decision was per incuriam, section 72 of the Evidence Act.
But the lead counsel for the Electoral Commission, Justin Aminuvo, in opposition to the application, said the petitioner had not met the conditions precedent for the grant of such an application.
We concede that the court is not infallible. But, my lord, your lordships may change your mind in an application for review only when certain conditionalities have been met. Because those conditionalities have been set out in Arta number 2 versus Arta number 2 to 2013-2014, 1 Supreme Court of Ghana Law Reports, 569 at pages 579 to 580.
So that was an excerpt of what happened in court this week. But another interesting thing that happened was, of course, the contempt hearing of former Deputy AG and a member of the petitioner's legal team, Dr. Dominic Aina. And it is from there that I'll begin the conversation from, and then we work our way up towards the upcoming verdict with the final addresses presented. I guess let me start from Lawyer Martin. Good morning, Lawyer Kwebu. Hello. Okay, so let me then start with Nikwapo Samuel. Nikwapo, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I am very well. Let's start with the contempt hearing. First of all, there are those who have said, what exactly did Martin Kwebu say that was wrong? Let's start from there.
Martin Kwebu?
Sorry, Dr. Dominic Aina. Forgive me.
Oh, we belong to a very conservative profession. And to that extent, the judiciary takes a strong exception to any statement that seeks, or they, in their opinion, seeks to undermine the administration of justice, or brings the justice administration into disrepute, or interferes with ongoing court proceedings, or any statements that will be deemed to be prejudicial to ongoing cases. And that power to punish persons who they believe are acting in a manner that is prejudicial to the administration of justice is vested in them in respect of what? Contempt, the power of contempt. So the power of contempt is one of the few powers that have been reserved to the courts. And the act of contempt, or the offense of contempt, is one of the few acts that is, in fact, this is probably one of the only act that is undefined. So even going to a court and you cough, if the judge is of the opinion that that cough interferes with his case, can cite you for contempt. As a lawyer, if I go to court and I engage in conduct or in behavior which a judge feels is disturbing the case, he can cite me for contempt. Even if I'm advocating very strongly and I use language that the judge feels he is uncomfortable with, he can cite me for contempt. So contempt is a very undefined animal. And that is why a lot of persons have asked that contempt be legislated, so that the actions that constitute contempt are clearly spelled out in written law, and so that it is not up to the arbitrary determination of a judge or a court as to what constitutes contempt. Because remember that now, statements that you make even on social media, even not related to an ongoing case, once it affects the integrity of the justice system or affects the reputation of a judge, can actually land you in serious trouble. So, in the opinion of our venerable judges, Dr. Aine, Honorable, crossed the line with the statement that he made, suggesting that there was a predetermined agenda by the court to rule against the petitioner. And so he then went ahead to express strong misgivings about that. And the court did not take kindly to it, especially because the case is ongoing. And if there's a suggestion that even before the end of the case, the court has taken a certain decision, then what will be the purpose of going to court? It undermines it undermines the confidence of the public in the judiciary. And so they take these things very, very seriously, especially because it's also the Supreme Court. It's the highest court of the land. So that suggestion actually calls into question the integrity of all the judges that are there. And if you link it to the other allegation made by Muntaka, for example, you understand, it will completely call into question the administration of justice in this country. Because if matters are already predetermined before you go to court, what confidence will the citizen have in going to court? You see, so they descended heavily on him, but he recognized his error, apologized for it, and retracted the statement within 24 hours. And so the court decided that, well, since he has shown remorse and retracted, what will be the point in punishing him? And then they advised him and they let it go. To err is human. And so sometimes, you know that one judge said that sometimes you must know when to talk as a lawyer and when to talk as a politician. You understand? Recognizing the fact that sometimes when you are putting on the political hat, you may, as Justice Mr. Yaiko to say, the Bigli, the Bigli can descend upon you and you begin to talk anyhow. So, to a large extent, we've all learned a lesson. The court has said that this is not statement that it finds advisable and conducive. And even the judicial service has had to get lawyers to issue a statement on behalf of the judicial service, strongly protesting about the manner in which some of these statements are made. And so I think we can all learn. We can all really learn from this and, you know, not conduct ourselves in a manner that will call for the court to descend on us in respect of such statements. So I think that perhaps is my summary of what happened.
All right, let me see if I can get lawyer Kwebu now. Lawyer Kwebu, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Godfrey. Good morning.
Yes, thank you. Listening to Nick Pako and what happened, perhaps the ordinary citizen will say, is it that judges or the courts are taking away the right to criticize? So you can't say anything about what the court does, considering how vague the lines are on what contempt is?
No, not at all. The judges do not, by any stretch of imagination, suggest that they cannot be criticized. In actual fact, they have even called on us to make sure that at every point in time, we subject their judgments and rulings to scrutiny and criticism. That's the only way we will grow as a society. But while in seeking to do so, we begin to say things that are unfounded and that will seek to create bias or cast allegations of unfairness on them, then we will be crossing the line into the area of contempt. So let's be clear, Godfrey, when a ruling has been delivered, okay, so a matter is before the court, and the court has delivered a ruling, that ruling is available to be criticized. If you find that they've stated things which are inaccurate, you are free to criticize. By criticizing, don't begin to, attribute some motives and certain, other statements, things that will stir up people's emotions, especially on political lines and all that, without any basis. You say, so let's say typically, let's give an example. The most glaring example would be, and you hear it on radio, that, it's because they've been appointed by Mr. X, that's the president. So President X appointed judges A, B, C, D. And because President X is of this political persuasion, so maybe Kwiadonko's party. So let's say Kwiadonko was president, and she appointed A, B, C, D onto the Supreme Court. When they rule and it goes in favor of Kwiadonko, then people would say, oh, yes, but these are Kwiadonko appointees. So they ruled on political lines. You don't even need to say political lines. If you say they ruled in favor of Kwiadonko because she appointed them, that is what you're saying. And that is where we are getting to contempt. You say, because that is to be very candid. That is the clearest example. This whole banter happening and everything is because some persons are ascribing political motive. But, it's also in the nature of human beings. Sometimes when people are emotionally upset, that's what happens.
What are your thoughts on
Nick? Unfortunate though.
Okay, what are your thoughts on Nick Papo's suggestion that, well, there's a school that says perhaps contempt should be open to some form of procedural regulation, considering in a bit to perhaps enhance and deepen the democratic process?
Yeah, that's right. I lost you a bit. Is it the contempt of...
no, I was asking, Nick Papo has suggested that there's a school of thought that says contempt should be open to some form of procedural regulation in order so that it is not just open to when a judge feels like he has been offended.
Well, you see, naturally, let's say this, Godfrey. When we decide to embark on an exercise of enactment, that very exercise in itself will help, in making it clearer. Yes, so there's some value in it. But the other side too is that we've had a lot of contempt cases, and there are judges who have written, I know Justice Brobin, there's a part chieftaincy and then a part of it on contempt of court, and so on and so forth. So the point I'm making is that maybe we should do more education based on the cases which have gone to court. So you do like an annotation. We put the decisions together and then run educational programs on the airwaves. That too will help. So an act of parliament just by itself alone is not sufficient. Bottom line is about education so that people are guided. So why don't we take the ones that have already come and gone, and then we make a program, make it simple enough, and then we can educate our people. So we can add that too in the mix.
Okay, let's get into the matters at hand properly. With what we saw this week, of course, with the review application was dismissed. I'm sure you have seen the final addresses. Lukaku, let me start from you. Are you in a position to let us know whether your case has been made a bit more clear in the final address, considering your insistence that there was a difficulty perhaps in understanding what the case of the petitioner was? Does your final address solve that problem in your estimation? I'm sure you've read it.
Oh, you know my position. That once the electoral commissioner did not mount the box, the petition should have been withdrawn. You've known my position since then. So it should tell you that for me, the court case died the day the application for leave to issue a subpoena to reopen the case. You understand? To enable the party to enable the petitioner to issue a subpoena to the EC failed. Because I have always put the case in its simplest context, in my opinion. This was a case between the petitioner and the Electoral Commission. Forget about President Anadu. His reliefs and his complaints was in respect of how the Electoral Commissioner had exercised her powers pursuant to Article 63 in respect of the declaration of the results and in respect of the instrument that was used to declare the results. And so the returning officer was the Electoral Commissioner. I also disclosed over the past weeks that the one of the ways of eliciting evidence was through who? The commissioner, by way of cross-examination. It is one of the ways. Yes, you present your matters, your evidence through your principal witnesses, but there's no, the rules also allow for evidence to be adduced from your opponent by way of cross-examination. The key, however, is you must get your opponent in the box. either because the person opens his defense, or before you close your case, if you could use the subpoena system to get the person, especially since the person is a public officer, okay, in this case, to come into the box and either corroborate what you are saying or affirm some of the issues that you wanted, or to elicit the information from them. And so in this particular scenario, the NDC legal team took a gamble. They failed to get the electoral commissioner or any officials of the electoral commission for that matter to be subpoenaed before they closed their case, because they allegedly relied on some reliance, that had been indicated through the admission for the motion for admission of facts, or to admit facts, blah blah blah, where they had allegedly been told in the arguments that, oh, she'll be available for cross-examination. And the woman says, well, I filed witness statement, but the law is clear. I'm not obliged to open my defense. And so once they closed their case, they were at the mercy of the court. The court refused them that. And if you're at the heart of your case, you consistently said that the returning officer was the one who declared the results. And so the answers in respect of the results that had been declared and the allegations of error and the fact that no one obtained 50+1 based on the errors that were made in the declaration were all going to come from the electoral commissioner. It meant that your whole case rested not only on what you were going to present, but what you sought to get from the electoral commissioner. It didn't work. So I found it a bit odd that you will still hit your head against the wall expecting to get a different result, because basically that is what you are doing. You have not been able to get the electoral commissioner into the box to come either to the cross-examination to give you adduce evidence of the errors that you said she made, you understand? And also how those errors materially affected the results in a way that no one attained 50+1, and therefore the court, based on that admission, should make the necessary orders for a rerun. Basically, that was at the heart of it. If they had been able to get Madame Jimensa into the box and under cross-examination, they had been able to elicit from her the fact that in her declaration, she made errors by using total valid vote cast instead of, total vote cast instead of total valid vote cast. That would be an infraction of Article 63.3, because Article 63.3 requires what? Total vote cast. The second thing would have been to get her to admit that the corrections that she purported to make were not made in compliance with 63.9, which requires an instrument to be issued, blah, blah, blah. All those things were vital. If they had got those admissions, it would have strengthened their case and made it quite clear that the results as declared did not measure up to Article 63.3 and 63.9. But they needed her in the box. And so if you fail to get her in the box, what are you going to use as the basis for seeking to overturn the results and to ask the court to validate the results? Especially when you did not independently bring any figures to the court and wanted to rely on figures that you were going to get from the Electoral Commission. They had a good strategy, but in implementing the strategy, they miscalculated at the point where they should have closed their case and went to ask for the EC. So for me, it is just hitting their head against the wall. Yes, they've tried to use the address to say that, okay, they filed a motion to admit facts, and the failure of the EC to respond to those facts would deem those facts to be admitted. I pray for them that will be upheld by the court. But in the absence, and the court has been very, very clear, in the absence of evidence from a party, okay, or relevant evidence from the party, which evidence must be on oath, you understand, it becomes difficult to expect that attempt to use that technicality may work. So to my extent, to a large extent, for me, once the motion for leave to adduce, to reopen their case and adduce further evidence by a subpoena was refused, the case was dead. That for me was it. So honestly, I don't see how it can be revived by writing a 100-page address or 200-page address, because at the heart of the game is evidence. And the strategy, I believe, was okay in respect of getting the EC to get into the box and adduce the evidence from the EC by way of cross-examination. Where they missed it was when they, instead of using the traditional methods of subpoenaing, listing the EC as a potential witness. You see, the point is, you can list the person as a witness without necessarily calling the person. So, for all you wanted, you could list the EC and 10 and all the 60 regional directors, including the deputy directors. That one, you've listed them. The court will have to look at that and see whether the evidence you are seeking to bring from them are relevant. But if you decided to do it the other way, by believing that because she had filed a witness statement and had given some earlier indication, she will come, and she didn't come, then your case, you live, your case rises and falls with you. So to the extent that they were not able to get her into the box, I felt the case was over. So for me, even if you write a 100-page address, it makes no difference. You have not led evidence in support of your case.
Thank you, Nikwaku, on that one. Let me get to Lawyer Kwebu before I come to the pocket lawyer, who is also a doctor in the studio. Lawyer Kwebu, Nikwaku has shared his thoughts. I'm sure you've spent the past 7 weeks paying attention to the case. At the end of it, and it's nearing an end, at the end of it, how does the judiciary come out of this? I've heard those who say this is as much a political case as a legal matter.
Oh, yes. So that's right. Yes, that's true. On the face of it, to the extent that it's going to decide the fate of the president, yes, it has a political aspect of it. But in order to arrive at the political end, we have to use the judicial means. Okay? Yeah, so I think what's happened is that we've moved our democracy a few inches higher. Okay? Yes. So I differ from Nipa. Lovely. This conversation, so let me call the court case a conversation, and you see the positive aspects of it.
Okay.
Since December 30th, when the case was filed, you see that it has generated a lot of public engagement, a lot of comments, both good and bad. That is the nature of our democracy. Through the interactions, we will grow. So for me, if you look at the commentary, you see this time around, we've learned some new terms and all that. That's a positive. But even the bigger one is that, watch this. Do you see that this time, the court case did not generate as much tension as it did in 2013? You see, businesses are ongoing. Businesses are running as usual, as if there's no court case. But in 2013, it was as if business had come to a standstill. You know, a lot of investors did not want to invest because one would have. At this time round, you would see that everything up smooth with the country. So those are intangible benefits that we've had, meaning that the rest of the world is getting higher confidence in our democracy. So confidence in our democracy is growing, okay? And then the biggest of it all, there is electoral psychology at the bottom of this case. Yes, electoral psychology. This case has shown up the NDC's chances for 2024. So let's be very frank. Because of this, you see, the EC made some mistakes. A lot of us didn't think that this is something that they should run away from. Mr. J. Mensah could have mounted the box. Afarijan made a similar mistake in 2012. And so he mounted the box. It didn't change the results of the election. But by Madame J. Mensah refusing to take the stand, people in the middle are having thoughts about it. What is it at all that she's running away from? You see, and that's been so deep in the minds of people. So that's a huge gain for the NDC. Electoral psychology is at the bottom of this case. So don't count the fortunes of Mr. Mahama or the NDC just at the final result that the Supreme Court will give. In actual fact, the biggest results they are looking for, it appears they've already obtained that. That is in the bag. They've struck the conversation, so it's all been about the errors of the EC. And, they've sown something in the minds of Ghanaians, and that's a plus for them. So it doesn't really take away much, even when the final results come. When the final verdict of the court. And so that is it. So for me, it's all right. We've strengthened our democracy. And also, it tells you that we should be doing something about these errors in announcing results. Because, as I've stated, Afarijan made a similar mistake. When you read the 2012 petition judgment, you'll find it in there. He made a similar mistake. He didn't change the final outcome. And then Madame G. Mensah is repeated the same. So it makes it 2 times. And so we should be looking at how to support the EC with statisticians and mathematicians and other very technical persons in that area so that we can avoid such mistakes in the future. And don't forget, just as the judges did a good job in the 2012 petition by recommending certain steps to help improve the electoral architecture, they are going to do the same in this petition too. It's to be expected. So all in all, look, for me, we have gained so much even without the final judgment. And so we should applaud ourselves for it.
All right, thank you very much, Lawyer Martin Pebu. And I don't have too much time, so I will, as we await the ruling on March 4, we will do much more debate on that. So I'm going to spend the last part of my show jumping to this matter that we had this week of the closure of the lobby office for LGBTQ plus Ghana. Generated significant chatter both on social and traditional media. And the landlord of the office has given the lobby a week to pack out of their apartments that they were using as a safe space to support LGBTQ plus people. And it was the culmination of a build-up of things. You had both Christian and traditional leaders speaking up, saying, look, this has to go, and all kinds of things. And it ended up with the closure. And we had our cameras there. So we'll watch this playback, and then we'll come in and have a conversation about LGBTQ plus, the way forward, and the law. What does it say?
The Office for LGBT plus Rights Ghana was officially opened on February 1, 2021. It was climaxed with an opening night and a fundraiser. In attendance was the Australian High Commissioner to Ghana, representatives of the Danish Embassy in Ghana, and the European Union. The opening of the office has sharply divided opinions among Ghanaians as the country's laws still criminalize homosexuality. While some groups and individuals have called for the office to be shut down, others believe it should be allowed to operate. We are here somewhere in Kwabinya within the Greater Accra region. The edifice behind me is actually the office of the LGBTQ plus Rights Ghana. And we are here with the landlord and other traditional authorities. But first of all, let me take a tour of the place with you. We are here in the yard now to check what has transpired between the time the police and the authorities came here. We were told by police that when they got here earlier, those who were already in the house actually fled. We're here to check, but from the look of things, the door has been locked. I can see a new padlock here, and I was told initially it was done by the security personnel who came here with the landlord. But we'll go ahead and speak to the landlord of this particular property. We also speak to the Kwabinya Traditional Council and some other people involved in this particular operation here.
In December, we finished renovation works and decided to give it out on rent. So we asked an agent to look for a tenant. So he got a tenant for us. I called the tenant to check his background. He said they were in, they were in NGO for health. So I asked the kind of health. And with this COVID, a lot of NGOs are coming. So we agreed and gave it to him for 1 year. And it was yesterday around 11 a.m. that a text message, a WhatsApp message came through with some pictures of some activities that had gone on here, relating it to the practice of LGBT. So I called the agent and asked him if he was aware. He said no. Then I called the tenant and I asked him, I hear there's something going on in the house. What is it? He said, oh yeah, we had a small party and it's all over social media. So I said, oh, hold on. A party and it's all over social media. What do you mean by that? Then he started trying to be dodgy. But I was really angry. So when he realized I had more information than he was telling me, he confessed that they actually provide health services for this kind of group. And I said, hold on a minute, I'm on my way right from Kumasi, so wait for me. Tomorrow I'll be in the house.
The landlord told the media he has taken some steps against the tenant.
My way, I called National Security, I called the Ghana Police Service, and I called a few other people that I wanted to help me just carry out an operation because it's in clear breach of the terms of the tenancy agreement. One, the place is purely for residential and not for such a purpose. So this morning, we contacted the police, National Security, and we decided to carry out the operation. The intention was to come and, one, validate whatever was going on, and if it is so, just take over my house and evict him. So I came prepared to pay him off, but there's a criminal aspect to it because LGBT is illegal in Ghana. So I got the police involved, and lawyers are also ready for them.
But does the action of the tenant really amount to a breach of the tenancy agreement? Dr. Asenso had this to say.
The walls have been painted. That's also another clear breach of the tenancy agreement because it is instructive in the tenancy agreement that every fixture, every painting must be done with prior approval from me, and it wasn't done. So the police are investigating the LGBT type. For me, the civil parties, there's a clear breach of tenancy agreement, and I want them out of the place.
On its part, the Kwabinya Traditional Council vowed to resist the continuous operation of the office.
So that was the landlord, Dr. Asenso JMBB, that you just heard. And you can send your comments on this matter through again via WhatsApp line 0549986996, 0549986996, 0550585832. And I want to deal with this from the legal perspective. So, Lawyer Kpebu, let me come to you again before I come to Dr. Okuboke. Let me go to Nikpapo Samuado first. Nikpapo, there seems to be a bit of a conversation about the clarity of the law. Let's start from there. What does the law say?
The law guarantees equal treatment under the law, so the constitutional provisions are clear in respect of equality and being treated equally, and that discrimination, no one should be discriminated against based on race, gender, among others. And we are also signatories to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. We deal with non-discrimination in respect of sex and sexual orientation. However, our criminal laws have criminalized the unnatural carnal knowledge. And carnal sex is basically sex, as I was to my understanding, relating to a man and a woman, because that's natural. So anything that is not natural, i.e., man and woman, is then criminalized by implication. So, homosexuality in its various forms, and LGBT goes beyond that. There are those who are lesbians, who are men to men, transgender, what have you. It goes beyond just one category. As it is now, our laws do not allow for those in respect of activities such as. It is not to say that these activities do not exist. It will be hypocrites if we, even in secondary school, and especially in all same-sex schools, for example, there's the allegation of supi and whatever. I went to an all-male school, and so the allegations are there. If Okoboy is in the studio, he will attest to the same. That we cannot pretend that we do not have the gay community in Ghana. And the gay community in Ghana involves very prominent people. So the gay community exists. Their activities are ever criminalized. That's also one that we should not run away from. You can't do it in the open, because if you do it in the open and you are arrested, you can be prosecuted for it.
Hold on, Ni. Hold on. I just want us to take. Is there? You are a teacher of the law as well. That's why I'm taking my time with this. Is there any documented case in Ghana of anybody being prosecuted with our Criminal Code 1960 Section 104?
Oh yes. It's just that I think a lot of it has happened in the circuit court, so they probably be unreported. But I would have to, do some. I'm sure maybe Martin will also be able to assist us, because he probably may have reported case. I'm not aware of the reported, but maybe Martin would assist me on that score. But it exists in our laws, and there have been prosecutions in respect of that. At least I'm aware in the circuit court. I'm aware that in the circuit court, some prosecutions have ever been or have ever gone on. I'm not aware in the High Court, and that's why I've said that maybe Martin, if Martin has any reported. Martin, are there any reported cases?
The second, I think the closest is the Dr. Ali Gabas.
Yeah. Dr. Ali Gabas. That was in the circuit court, if I'm not mistaken. So after the circuit court, I'm aware of numerous prosecutions in respect of that. But in the High Court, I haven't come across a reported case yet. But it may be that it is there and that's not exist. But back to my earlier point, that's what I'm saying, that factually we have the gay community, and that's something we cannot run away from. They exist. The Kojo Bestias, that's where the term Kojo Bestia came about. You see men dressed as women and all that. They are there. If you go to certain places in Accra, I don't want to mention the names, but if you go to certain places at Accra in the evenings, you will see them. So and they are prominent people. They are lawyers and what have you, judges, journalists. It cuts across. They are known people who have a certain sexual orientation, different from what we would consider to be natural. What we have done in our law since the colonial days is to criminalize that activity. So one of the things that community has sought to do is to push back by way of education, activism, and to some extent, the European Union and the United States have decriminalized that activity. They've not only decriminalized it, but they've legalized it and have gone ahead to give those people virtually the same rights as natural couples. So it is a long process. It's not just about decriminalization, but it's also about actually giving them rights and giving them acceptance within the law. What it looks like our position in this country has been, politically, traditionally, socially, is that we are not prepared at this stage in our lives as a country to give them legitimacy. And so if you look across board, the leadership, if you look across board, traditional, religious and what have you, there's a clear stance that nationally we've taken a certain position that we will not legitimize this particular activity. Yes, it may exist, just like all forms of diseases and all forms of other forms of preferences exist. Let it exist in your mind. Let it exist in your closet. But we will not legitimize it, and we will not make it part of our national curriculum and make it a legitimate activity to be encouraged and to be supported. So that is where it is. And I don't think that there's any political party that is prepared to put its head as it is now on the line and say that it is going to give LGBT rights any support. It won't happen. Be it religious, be it traditional, be it legally, our position as a country is clear that we are not prepared to give such a community any space within our society. Yes, they may exist. Let them exist, but they will not get the acceptance within the confines of the law that they seek to get. And that may raise issues of sanctions by countries like the US, the European Union, who have even made it now a point that...
Hold on there for me. Okay. We'll get there. Let me talk to Lawyer Kwebu a bit on this. Now, Lawyer Kwebu, again, there are those who have said perhaps the law needs clarity or it needs modernizing a bit, considering the definition of carnal knowledge and what it implies, as explained by Nikpako. If I recall, in 2013 or so, we had lawyer Ndebugri test this out in the court. I don't know what the outcome was, but he sought to prove that woman versus a woman on woman, as per the definition of our law, was not exactly carnal knowledge. And then those who also say that part of the movement of LGBTQI is cross-dressing, as Nikpako again explained. How can I be arrested for deciding to dress differently? There are very popular people in this country who wear skirts and shirts, who are men, and vice versa, and are hailed for it.
Yeah, that's right. Let me put this out at the outset. I was telling Kojo when I was invited that, you see, this LGBTQ matter, my personal opinion is that
Lakwebu?
I think it's closing out.
Okay, we'll try and fix our connection with Lakwebu. Let me come to to Dr. Bernard Okoboy. The same question I put to him, but you are not a lawyer, so but you can share your thoughts on what the fury has been this week.
I think just to read our closing address, the epilogue. There's an epilogue that's.
Oh, you are going to the Supreme Court.
Or just the epilogue, so that it's very. He said, elections are complex systems designed and run by fallible human beings. Thus, it is not surprising that mistakes, errors, or some other imperfection occur during an election. Because absolute electoral perfection is unlikely, and because finality and stability are important values, not every error, imperfection, or combination of problems found in an election contest voids the election or changes its outcome. Respectfully submitted. Now, you know what? Dr. Martin Luther King said something very important, that the freedom will not be freely or voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be worked at by the oppressed. And the same thing applies for straightism. As a country, one of the things that defines our, our appearance, is part of our identity, is that we are largely all wholly straight. You understand? Now, that straightness will not be preserved for the next 1,000 years by default forces. We have to consciously and deliberately work to preserve it. And let me say here that, like Nikpako said, the fact that some people act feminine, some males are feministic in their behavior, doesn't necessarily mean that it is something that is more or less allowed or is a phenomenon that should be tolerated. Godfred, as a country, we should see a fight to preserve our straightness and not allow this, same sex, as a way of also maintaining our identity. When you go to Saudi what reminds you that now you are in Saudi, or what reminds you that now you are in Dubai, or reminds you that now you are in a particular country, is the fact that in Saudi, when you steal, they apply their Sharia laws. You'll be taken to a court where the judgment will be that your hand should be cut off. And today, in today's world, Godfrey, they cut hands if someone steals. You can be stoned to death in certain jurisdictions in Asia. That is codified in their laws. And it's important to remember that our beliefs and norms is what is codified usually in laws, of course. And this issue of same sex obviously does not sit with our identity and our beliefs and norms. And what I know, although I'm not a lawyer, is that laws are amended or repealed when the thinking that went into them is shown manifestly to be untenable. But if you look at the thinking that went into making unnatural carnal knowledge illegal, the thinking still holds. Nobody can say that it's untenable. And so, for me, I think that we must also work more on our laws. You know, the law is quite very, is it terse is the word? It's quite brief on natural carnal knowledge. We must have a law that is more definitive, more precise, states what is inclusive of unnatural carnal knowledge, what is exclusive of it, so that our position is made clear. But we as a country should remember that sometimes when you go to Europe, there are certain things that shows that you are likely to have come from West Africa, including even your religion, including how you conduct yourself. I remember the first time I went to the States, I just entered one train, and then I got up when some elderly person came. And the first question he asked me is that, are you coming from Africa or West Africa? Or there are blacks like me who are Americans. But he attributed that act to
where you came from.
Exactly. Because he knows that there are certain places in this world where these things are key, very essential part of our identity. So, I mean, nobody would attack us for being straight. I mean, just as nobody is going at Saudi Arabia for applying these Islamic laws, it's part of what makes them Saudi. And if we are not careful, if we go in the direction of some of these LGBT and all that, it will come to a time you will not even know, you lose your identity. So the point I want to make is that it has to do with identity.
Okay, thank you.
And I mentioned the laws also because we need to have a clear arrangement that deals with identifiable behaviors that fall into this, so that we don't leave it at the discretion of an opinion leader in the community or of a gang leader, because that can also lead to mayhem, where I think that I don't agree with this, so I'm going to use an axe. Let the laws tell us how to deal with them. But I'm being straight. It is un-Ghanaian, as long as I'm concerned, to go,
that way.
That way.
All right. Point well made. I think I have Lawyer Kwebu back. Lawyer Kwebu, let me hear you.
That's right.
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
So the point I made is that, you see, to the extent that the people, the LGBTQ people are not out there for us to see them, it's not a matter I usually would participate in. Because
certainly,
right now, we have our prisons that are overcrowded. People are suffering in jail. We are not discussing them. Every day, people bombard me with calls from Instagram. Yes, suffering. We are not talking about them, but we are rather interested in talking about people we don't know. So, no, that's the.
Well, I think we're having problems with the sound of Lawyer Kwebu. Franklin. Okay, so we'll try and fix that, and then try and wrap up the conversation. I have a couple of messages. Let me just read the messages. Well, in fact, let me just take a quick break, read the messages, and then we'll wrap up on the big issue today.
take a moment to talk about money. Life can get a little pricey out there. The passing pleasure of a restaurant meal, a fleeting fast food feast, or those sports magazines you never really finish. But what if you got to watch the big game rather than read about it? And what if that lasted a lot longer? Well, with DSTV, it can. Because with a whole range of different package options to choose from, you can get a whole month's worth of moments for both you and your family at a price you can afford.
I am so excited.
That's right. Only one in exchange for hours of sport, lifestyle.
Love is a game of cat and mouse.
International, local, and kids entertainment.
Let the nerds take over!
It's your moment to enjoy all the moments with DSTV.
Hey, Papa, no.
Hey, where's your friend at all?
I was at the bar with my friend Ato. We are betting the game and tensions were high. And Ato said, Charlie, we could lose. So then I said, Key with the header! I won 15,000. Then Ato said, wait, we bet the same amount. How come I only got 9,000? Now I asked, yo, you didn't bet to Bet Planet?
Wait. He didn't bet to Bet Planet?
I didn't bet to Bet Planet. Then the bartender said, Ato, you suck, oh, sharp. I go take all my money. Then Ato said, all your money? That was quick, oh. He's betting people say, come for yours tomorrow. We went the next day and they said, come for the rest tomorrow.
For the best odds, biggest wins, and fastest payouts, choose Bet Planet.
So Ato, where you there?
I still take you inside.
This advert has been vetted and approved by the Gaming Commission of Ghana. Bet responsibly, not for persons below the age of 18.
Welcome back to the big issue. Just wrapping up with the conversation on the closure of an LGBTQ rights office in Accra this week and matters of the law and human rights. I think I have Franklin back now. Franklin, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. Your thoughts on this episode and the state of the law and matters of human rights?
Well, if the law says it should be dealt with, it should be. You know, frankly, like Lawyer Kwebu did say, it's becoming a bit nauseating hearing all the hows and the angst that have been expressed against this act. There's a law. Is there a law? Yes. Is there a policy guiding this, the way the law should be regulated? We don't know. But frankly, apart from all the, should I call it the mobilized angst against persons who are perceived to be engaging in this act, we don't seem to have some clarity on what the policy guidelines are. Look, sometimes I'll be watching cartoons with my kids, and then I notice that there are subtle lines that are dropped by some of the characters suggesting that these acts are normal or not. And somehow I try to tell them, well, maybe that may not be the right thing to do or say. But in actual fact, I'm just trying to say that there are multiple levels at which these kinds of thoughts or this act are expressed. So apart from the law dealing with it, I think that should end the matter. I mean, this whole idea of making it look as if we are holier than thou, everybody seems to have forgotten all of a sudden the other sins we commit. It's quite frankly nauseating to hear. And I've said it and said it once again. As a Christian and as a Catholic, my Catholic teachings do not allow me to do that, right? But we've seen a number of Catholic priests and some bishops who have been caught in the act, right? So the point to say is that, look, just believe what your belief tells you and don't shove it in people's faces. Just as we would expect that those who are in the act should also not be seen to be, making it look as if they have to shove it in our faces, really. I mean, these are adult bedroom matters that are discussed. Unless, of course, we find people who are actively recruiting people into it, which again is also very illegal. The law must deal with all these people. I think we are shouting too much and then accusing everybody who hasn't said a word or two about it as being closet gays or supporting of gays. The fact of the matter is that people hold opinions all the time. And as someone did say, well, you said so, that these things, was it Dr. Kobot, who said the fact that we are straight as a society today, I mean, collectively so-called straight, does not mean that at one point in time, these ideas may become part of the things that are normally discussed. It has started in certain societies. And as the president did say, it's something that is coming. We have to embrace ourselves for it. I'll do my part. I do not endorse it as a form of carnal knowledge. But at the same time, I'm not here and I'm not the one going to prescribe exactly how adults should behave. If there's a law that says certain acts cannot be tolerated, well, so be it. Once the law follows people into their bedrooms, I'm sure the law will be very, 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 very active in its practice anyway. So that's all I've got to say about this.
Okay. Thank you, Franklin.
And I think it's a different thing being tolerant of the discussions and another thing accepting it as a practice. So the point I'm making is that these arguments would come up, but it must take deliberate effort from Ghana as a society to make sure that they don't get, because now they are moving from existence to prominence. Prominence means that being at the top and being accepted as a practice. That is what we must work strongly against. And strongly against means that we must be more clearer, we must be clearer on our laws. We must be very, what's the word? We shouldn't be equivocal. We must be very unequivocal that this is un-Ghanaian and we don't want it to be part of our identity. It is the reason why the Dutch ambassador and the Australian ambassadors were there. Don't be mistaken. It's because it is part of their identity. In their countries, they are seen as normal. It defines their society. The question is whether we want to be defined by such practices. And I'm not here saying that kill one when you find. I am saying that let's take steps to make sure that the steps help us to keep the identity we have, which is straightism.
Okay, but what if the identity changes along there? Because you also made the interesting point that laws change when the larger part of society changes.
That's what I'm saying. That
you are saying then that you have to basically force down parts of
so the point I'm making is that the straightism will not be preserved by default forces. It means that there's no guarantee that by 1,000 years it will remain so. There will be other forces trying to undo it. And we must make deliberate efforts. So I'm more or less trying to call on advocates to speak like Fuameni does, to speak strongly in protection of what we have now. Because, mind you, if you are calm and quiet and then put in more effort, then the chance of you being torpedoed is higher. So that is the point I'm making, that over the next 1,000 years, whether we are still straight or how do you call it, or gay, will depend on the effort that comes on the side of those who believe that we ought to be straight.
But they are saying that you are even taking away their rights for them to. You are saying there's a need to advocate,
and that's why
you are saying you don't even want them to advocate.
No. I'm saying that I'm tolerant. In terms of the discussion, if they bring their arguments, we must deliberately and consciously
engage or counter it.
And counter it. And look, when you go to Saudi, is it not against my rights that I want to drink Jack Daniels and you cannot get it in there? In fact, you are arrested when you are seen drinking. The US is a close partner of Saudi. Why haven't they mentioned human rights issues? You know why? Because they see those laws as part of their identity. And they've even come to accept that if you want to drink, maybe it's even safer to drink in your bedroom or hotel room. And even sometimes you need special clearance that you come from a jurisdiction where this is allowed. The point I'm making is that, cutting hands in certain jurisdictions, there are countries that still cut your hand when you go and steal. There are countries where you are flogged to death. These things are happening across the world. And those countries have kept it as part of their identity. And the US still deals with some of these countries. So my point is that we as a country are straight in our doings. And we must know that it's even part of our identity. And that those who come up with arguments on LGBT are doing so in the hope that when they put in more effort, they'll be able to sway us to come on their side. And I'm encouraging those who are straight, who are for our current or largely, how do you call it, what is the usual practice, to put in extra effort. I see only Fuameni going around and doing a lot of work. And then lastly, like I said, look, it's not enough to just counter them with words. Let's explain, let's deal with our laws and make sure that we are able to keep some of these things out of our society.
All right, then let me just take a couple of messages and wrap up. Babamu from Tamale says, good day, I'm impressed with the nominees who have appeared so far. My regards to Dr. Okoboy for his submission, and he does not want LGBTQ to be entertained. Julius Afedi has an interesting one. He says, I think the challenge is the definition of rights, because Article 33.5 makes it clear that rights in the Constitution includes new emerging rights, like what is entailed, like what these LGBTQ folks are asking for. But Article 1.2 states that laws that are enactment and found to be inconsistent with the constitutional provisions are void. In this case, what do we do when the Constitution is clear on its position and the Criminal Act has a different position? Kweku La Paz from La Paz says, Ghana is freer than most European or American countries when it comes to human rights. I lived in Europe and the Middle East, and I experienced proper discrimination, not this. Walanyo Nakwetia says, where was Amnesty International when Winston Blackmore and James Ole were found guilty in the United Kingdom for engaging in polygamy? Weren't they exercising their fundamental human rights? It looks like the world is sick from entire divine laws. Diplomats support or promote any diplomat who supports this in Ghana must be removed immediately. Xylix Dwayne says the president should come clear on what his stance is on this matter. And Prince Inla on the vetting says, good morning, Godfred, to you and your panelists. It is totally laughable for the minister designate for sanitation to say that work is in progress for Accra to become the cleanest city in Africa, having seen how poorly her administration has been in the past. I want to know, one, where lies the progress in sharing waste bins without appropriate measures to manage, maintain, and sustain the activity? How do you eradicate the open defecation menace by building toilets where untreated effluent is discharged into public drains to pollute the environment? That ministry is just a waste of taxpayers' money. And Prince Inla has raised some very, very important questions. If anybody at the ministry is listening, perhaps you can take something from this. Good morning, please. I want to know whether COVID-19 tests are free, because I've inquired from Nyaho and Noguchi, and I was told I have to pay. It is free if you attend a public research facility, a public lab, right?
But when you've been referred from a public hospital.
Yes, when you've been referred from a public hospital. Test. Yeah. So that's free. Can come from Asokoreko Florida says, I'm not the appointing authority, but after listening to both Honorable Frida Prempe and Honorable Howard Kumsin, I think Honorable Frida Prempe deserves something much bigger than a Minister of State. Well, that is a big job. Don't downplay it. Aki from Efia constituency says, good morning, Godfred. In my opinion, Ghanaians should ignore these conspiracy theories and accept the vaccine. We need to bring our lives back to normalcy. And somebody's asking, why can't Ghana produce its own world-class vaccines? Don't we have scientists? We have scientists. Boy and his people don't give them money. Solomon from Solomon Asanti Bwedu says, will there be any punishment if one refuses to take the vaccination? No, that is why it is voluntary for certain categories of persons. And let me just see a few more, and then I would hear Bernard from Medina says, I often struggle to comprehend citizens who feel that the rights of LGBTQI+ people are being abused. Intervention of the foreign powers on this issue is unfortunate. I pray that the good law should protect and guide journalists, members of parliament, and the general public who are anti-LGBTQ+. Ghana should and must not allow its conscience to be but. Well, on that note, I will end this episode of The Big Issue. I hope you enjoyed it. It's been fantastic coming here. A big thank you to lawyer Martin Pebu, to Honorable Suhini all the way in Ada, to Dr. Bernardo Koboy in studio, and to Franklin Kujo, who also joined us via Zoom. My name is Godfred Akotobuafo. Have a wonderful weekend.